It is 5:31 p.m. It is February 9th, 2021. This is our regular session Monroe County Council meeting. We're called to order. We'll do a quick roll call vote here of all of our council members present on this Monroe County snow day. And I will start with Councilmember Deckard.
Here.
Councilmember Hawk.
Here.
Councilmember Iverson.
Here.
Councilmember McKinn.
Here.
Councilmember Munson.
Here.
Councilmember Wiltz.
Here.
Terrific. Everybody's here. We've got a quorum and we'll move forward with our agenda. Next item is our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll all stand, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
United States of America.
And to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And our next item on the agenda will be public comment. And this will be for items, public comment for items not on the agenda. 3 minutes per speaker. And we do have a tone that will sound when there's 30 seconds remaining on the speaker's speaking time. And I'll have our TSD representative play that tone for us so we can hear that. All right, so that will be the tone that sounds when there's 30 seconds remaining on the speaking time. And we'll ask now the public if there are any comments for items not on the agenda. Does anybody have their hand raised? Or go ahead and raise your hand now if you'd like to make a comment. Does not appear that we have any public comment this evening. So we will move on to our next item, which is department updates. And if there are departments with us who would like to provide an update, go ahead and raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. And also, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to all of our county employees, our departments and offices for their work today. I know this was a very busy, hectic day. And so thanks for everyone for all the work that was involved. I was able to get out today. I had to go pick up some supplies for my 3rd grade daughter for an e-learning day. And while I was out earlier, I kind of drove around some of the more rural areas of my district. And I was, so impressed to see that the roads were fully cleared. This was right around noon. So we've got a big county. We've got a lot of roads to cover out there. And I was just really impressed with the work that we saw with this kind of unexpected snowstorm that hit us last night. A little bit more snow than I think anyone was really anticipating. But wow, what a great job by everybody. So, and also thanks to our TSD department for being able to assist. I know our technical services group is, it's almost like an essential emergency type of worker to keep these networks running all day and being able to facilitate these online meetings for us. So thanks so much for everything there. So now we'll check and see, do we have any departments who would like to provide an update? And I see Commissioner Thomas is with us. Welcome, Commissioner Thomas.
We'll try that again. Thank you so much. I hope everyone is well. Just a couple of quick updates, and I think Angie Purdy has a quick one as well. So just to keep you posted on where we're at with CARES funding for businesses, social service agencies, and taxing units in our community, we have reached $642,006.81. For those of you who are operating a social service organization or business in our community, if you have non-personnel COVID-related expenses that you have not covered elsewhere, to please visit co.monroe.in.us and make an application. This is a grant, not a loan program. Also, we are at, just as an update as well, We are still at the $200,000 level for Township Assistance Fund. This is where we, the Board of Commissioners Council, work together with our great township trustees to ensure that people have shelter, utilities, and the basic necessities of life, especially when it's this cold out. It's so important. Every county resident lives in a township, so if you need assistance, please contact your township trustee as soon as possible so that they can help you. They have the funding to do so. There is a full list of township trustees and contact information on the emergency management website page on the county website. So that's what I have for you. Let's see if we can get Angie on for other items.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. I believe Angie or Ms. Purdy would is wanting to speak as well too. Well, perhaps we can try to come back to Ms. Purdy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Sorry about that. I'm in the car. I actually wanted to give you an update on kind of tying in with Commissioner Thomas about the use of the funds that council approved, I believe at your last meeting, actually. Tomorrow, presuming the commissioners approve the contract, $20,000 will be provided to Beacon for the winter shelter that they have in place. And at this point in time, we have expended in the supply line $30,000 plus, but that is actually what we had encumbered originally. So we've not reached into any new funding for the supply line that you guys provided for us at your last meeting. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you is tomorrow, again, the commissioners will be signing a letter of agreement to contract with Apex Benefits. As you know, they've been providing our broker benefits, our service, since 2014. And because of how well Elizabeth has been doing, and Jordan, I want to name them specifically, and the learning that they have done as a result of working with Apex. Apex is actually reducing our cost from $8 per full-time employee per month to $4 per full-time employee per month. So that's a 50% reduction that we're seeing because of how well our benefit people are working with our broker. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I think it says a lot for the employees that we have.
Wonderful. I want to check and see if council has any questions on these updates from the Commissioner's office. Any questions? All right. Ms. Purdy, anything further?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight and providing the update.
Thank you. And I'll be back on hopefully in a little bit for the position. Yes.
We will see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Any further department updates? Does not appear that we have any more department updates. All right. And next up is our council liaison updates. Do we have any council members who have a liaison report that they'd like to share tonight? Mr. Iverson and then Ms. Munson.
All right, I have 3 reports that I'd like to give tonight, and I'm going to start with the health department. As always, Penny has contacted me and asked for a night off, so I'm more than happy to give her that night off. She's been working really hard. Penny Cottle, the head of our health department. We're doing really well in our community, and it's because everyone out there is wearing their masks and they're washing their hands and they're staying socially distant. Our county has moved from orange to yellow. And you can see the actual statistics on the counties or on the state's website, and we're just continuing to do very well. We are also doing very well statewide in terms of our vaccination rates. And let me just pull up some of those numbers there. Here in Monroe County, those who have received a first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, that number is at 14,426. And those who have been fully vaccinated, that number is up to 5,662. So we're doing really well. We continue to be one of the top counties in the state in terms of those numbers. And so we just really encourage people to, if you are 65 years of age or older, go to ourshot.in.gov, or if you don't have access to the internet, you can also call 211 and you can get it through that way. So we're really excited about that. You can also see the vaccination dashboard on the state's website, and there's some interesting data there, especially in terms of race and ethnicity, where Indiana needs to be doing a better job about making sure that vaccines are being made equitable, and you can see that data on there. The last thing I wanted to mention, or there's two other things in terms of the health department. I'll be quick about this. The health board is meeting regularly, and they're being very adroit. They continue to assess the situation, not only in our community, but also on campus. And they are making changes pretty quickly about crowd sizes and things like that. So they're doing a great job. Make sure that you drop them a line and thank them. And then the last thing that I'll mention in terms of the health department is that the weather is definitely cold. And so warming centers are popping up all around our community. Most of the warming centers are at fire stations, whether that's the Monroe County Fire Protection District, City of Bloomington, or Ellettsville fire stations. And these are areas where it's a heated facility where individuals who don't have heat can come up for a warm up and then they can continue on their way. These warming stations do not have food, showers, or areas for sleep. And we also ask that people wear a mask and maintain 6 feet of distance. As the commissioners just reported, if you need additional assistance, please contact your township trustee. That's it for the health department. And then real quick for the Women's Commission, next month is Women's History Month. And so the Women's Commission is going to be having a fantastic series of events there. I'll have more details for you soon. But they are really kicking into high gear there. And so we're really appreciative of that commission. And lastly, the Environmental Commission, due to Commissioner Lee Jones' leadership, is continuing their work with the Environmental Resilience Institute to track and to monitor our responsiveness to climate change. So they're doing a great job. The Environmental Commission's meeting is tomorrow. Women's Commission meets on Friday. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Iverson, for the reports. Councilmember Munson.
I will announce that I'm very excited. Tomorrow, I will join the ranks of the people who have their first vaccination shot. I'm glad it wasn't this morning because it took a while for our roads to get cleared. What I want to tell you is that the Solid Waste Management District is preparing an updated solid waste management plan. You could learn a little bit more at the district board meeting this Thursday at 4 o'clock. But it's something that's not going to take place overnight. There's a lot of work that goes into this. In addition to the board members and staff working on the plan revision, the Citizens Advisory Committee is taking a very active role. And I just want to give them a big shout out for their enthusiasm and their diligence in tackling this update. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Munson. Any further council member liaison reports? Councilor Hawk, yes.
Yes, having to do with the highway. I just want to let you know that we've been following that Senate bill, let me see, I think it's 207, that we all know we need that thing to pass because it's going to allow motor vehicle highway dollars to be able to be used for snow and ice removal. And do we need that now for certain? And it was really being held up in the Senate and debate back and forth. And now I believe it's going to be moving forward because they did approve an amendment today to remove the requirement that it had to have that wheel tax, excise tax, that the counties had to have that tax in order to use just 40% of that revenue for rehabilitation of roads and so forth. And so that's, for that to move forward is something we absolutely have to have happen because we know that we count on those dollars to do all of these repairs and so forth. And so if we have to, so let's just make sure that we continue to contact everybody at the state and help us get that through for our highway department.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Any other reports? Yes, Ms. Wiltz.
Hi, yes. I wanted to just let folks know that the Bloomington and Monroe County Metropolitan Planning Organization is collecting even more information from the public via the state Indiana Department of Transportation. This time we are doing a survey that's part of a mobility needs assessment that we will use in the public transit human service transportation plan for Bloomington and Monroe County. I'll put the link to this survey in the chat, but the idea is that we're looking at gaps in transportation service for older adults, individuals with disabilities, people on low incomes, and the general public as well. And then the plan will be identifying projects that meet the needs and serve to fill those accessibility gaps. The survey is open for a couple of months. I think it's open till the end of March, but it would be great if everyone could just sort of spread the link far and wide around the area so that we can get as much input as possible. And I'm putting that in the chat now. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anything further? Just a quick update on PAC. So there was a meeting last week, which we'll be addressing one of the items that came out of that here shortly, but wanted to announce that Councilmember Deckard was elected as PAC president for another term. So congratulations to Mr. Deckard on his continuation in this role. And you know, I'm looking forward to continuing working with Councilmember Deckard in that regard. And we got a lot of really important initiatives that PAC is undertaking. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that development that came out of our last PAC meeting last week. Okay, so if there are no further liaison reports, we will now move on to item 6. And we will be receiving a presentation here from, we've got our friends from BEDC as well as the Indiana Business Research Center, which will be a presentation on the local economic forecast here for 2021. And so I'd like to welcome our guests. We'll have a 15-minute presentation, and then we'll follow that with about 5 minutes or so of Q&A afterwards. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I should go ahead and get started.
Feel free, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting Jen and myself to present this to you. We're honored to be with you, and certainly want to thank you for all the work that you all do by serving as counselors, because you're making sure that life goes on in Monroe County. So I'm going to start off the presentation by talking a little bit about current conditions before I get to the forecast. And certainly it's not going to be a surprise to anyone to know that our unemployment in Monroe County is still high relative to where it was in 2019. So December of 2020, unemployment was 25% higher than it had been. In fact, we're in one of the highest unemployment scenarios that we've been in the county since the Great Recession. I think it's important to focus on the fact that we are seeing some slippage in the size of our labor force as well as people employed. And I also want to point out, when you're looking at these numbers, this is based on people who live in the county. Their jobs may be in another county, but they actually live in Monroe County. We can dig deeper by looking at the industries that have been most affected by job losses based on unemployment claims from those industries, or the people who are working in them who lost their jobs. So you can see that huge spike that occurred early last year. Is it just last spring? It seems eons ago and yesterday for many of us. But you can see that we're still continuing in Monroe County to hover around a still large number of people receiving unemployment benefits even through January. And we anticipate that that's probably going to continue. We can probably chart this along with Mr. Iverson's COVID vaccination rate. And as more and more people become vaccinated, as the spread is reduced and hopefully potentially eliminated, that we'll see claims get down to the hundreds instead of well over 1,000. With these two charts that I'm showing you here, I wanted to give you a sense of which industries in the county had the largest numbers of layoffs. And back in the spring, I pegged April 25th. Accommodation, food services, our hotels, inns, hospitality services, restaurants, bars were really the biggest hit during that period of time. Tellingly, though, manufacturing, retail, trade, even health services at that point in time were hit pretty significantly with unemployment claims. We fast forward to just a couple of weeks ago, and we look at those unemployment claims, and I'm referring here to what's called continued claims. Those are the benefits that people are actually receiving. Food services, hotel, et cetera, are still impacted. It's shrunk. Sadly, some of it is shrinking because some of those businesses have closed temporarily, and in some cases, they've closed permanently. Construction continues to be hit, really starting with the end of summer. Construction was really particularly hit. So I wanted to point out which industries are hurting the most. And we can also try to dig in a little bit deeper to see what parts of our county experience the highest rate of unemployment claims. And back in April, it was hitting pretty much everywhere in the county. And that's why most of the county is dark blue or it's light blue. If there was no color there, that would mean nobody was filing for unemployment. And we see that really kind of in the center of Bloomington, which is really probably the IU effect and the amount of remote working that we see both in government and some private industries. If we fast forward to November, which is the latest data that the state has provided so far at this level, we can see that Census Tract 12, which over near the Hill area, is continuing to suffer the pain of unemployment. And you can see that none of these areas in the county are not experiencing layoffs or job loss. So what are we forecasting at the Indiana Business Research Center for the Bloomington economy over the next year through 2023? Certainly, we took a big hit in 2020 with the job losses that we had. We had no job growth on a net basis in 2020. We're anticipating at some point in 2021 that we're going to make up for that. However, the speed of the vaccine, the ability for IU to constrain the virus spreading among the student population is going to have an effect on that. Right now, we're anticipating that we're going to see over on the green bar slide, we're going to see a hit to the economy because there's less money circulating. People who've lost jobs don't have money to spend. Businesses who have lost customers don't have money to spend in the local economy. And so we anticipate that that pain is going to continue this year and even potentially into 2022, although we anticipate a good bounce back by then. But as you can tell, like most economists will do, I'm hedging my bets a little bit on that. Jen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. And it's really a pleasure to be here this evening. For anyone not familiar, the BEDC is a local nonprofit that catalyzes retention, development, and attraction of quality jobs in Monroe County. Our members include organizations from the private, nonprofit, and public sectors, including county commissioners and county council. And we just wanted to give a shout out to our liaison, Jeff McKim, as well as the whole council for their collaboration over time. Economic development at its core works to sustainably increase prosperity and quality of life for communities. It's not growth for the sake of growth. And as we've seen throughout the last year, there's high relevance and interplay with health. As we consider the 2021 business outlook, there is a link that we see between public health, economics, business, and other areas which impact the business outlook. There's a public health concept called social determinants of health, which illustrates this relationship. And as you can see here, economic stability, neighborhood and physical environments, education, food, community, and the healthcare system all influence our health outcomes of both individuals and communities. These are factors that have all been strained by the pandemic. At the same time, the success of our employers relates to having a healthy, vibrant workforce and a strong community that can participate in economic activity. The BDC interviewed 20 of its members and partners regarding their outlooks for 2021. They represent a range of industries listed here with no large sample of respondents in any one industry. So these responses should be seen as examples of individual employer experiences. The interviews reinforced what Carol indicated, that industries have been impacted differently and are recovering differently. Here's a sampling of what we heard from interviews. A higher education administrator noted that student enrollment is rebounding from declines seen earlier in the pandemic, and they'll continue to offer students extra support this year. Hospitality and tourism businesses have been most heavily impacted by the pandemic and are forecast to recover more slowly than other industries. Medical services were heavily impacted in 2020 due to high demands on the industry. However, a local respondent in the field expressed an optimistic outlook based on plans to hire, lessons learned through 2020, and plans for expansion this year. A life science industry respondent indicated uncertainty for this year. As hospitals across communities fill with COVID patients, some have opted to limit elective medical procedures, which can affect demand for medical products. A manufacturing executive noted that the automotive industry is showing stable for 2021, with sales in Indiana strong. Local construction and subcontracting companies have noted that they'll be affected by decisions on major construction and renovation projects, both tied to public and private funding. Residential real estate remains strong, with prices continuing to go up, given the lack of local housing supply and low interest rates. a couple of our banking executives expressed optimism for 2021, noting that federal appointments and economic policy decisions will impact the banking industry. And finally, a couple of financial and retirement planning experts that were interviewed indicated strong continued demand for their services, given the uncertainty of the last year. We also saw common themes emerge from the conversations. First is that the pandemic and public health will continue to impact business this year. I think that's pretty much a given. At the same time, our respondents indicated hope around the opening of our COVID-19 vaccination efforts, which can have a very positive impact on the business community. Second, IU's plans will continue to impact the local economy. This is because students comprise an important part of the local consumer base, as well as a part of the local workforce. Decisions on IU athletics and graduation will impact local businesses, especially in hospitality and tourism. And IU building and renovation projects will also continue to impact the business outlook. IU's long-term large capital projects are dictated by the Indiana General Assembly, which is convening now. Ongoing challenges include workforce housing and commercial properties. Some industry respondents, especially those in production and those requiring direct interactions with customers, have experienced labor shortages. These were actually challenges that began before the pandemic and intensified in 2020. A few employers noted the need to create more workforce housing to support talent attraction and retention efforts and an affordable quality of life. Simultaneously, some respondents indicated concern about empty commercial spaces, which may be exacerbated through business closures. At the same time, developable land and housing, and for both housing and larger employers, remains limited. Regarding remote work, we found that some businesses pivoted well and were able to fare better through the pandemic. Others indicated remote work will remain a challenge based on industries and organizational cultures. And then a final theme was that financial stimulus could continue to help. City, county, and federal stimulus have helped small businesses persevere, but how much longer the pandemic lasts will determine if it's enough. We're hearing optimism, but also uncertainty for the year. So what can we do? Despite the national challenges that impact our community, we have an ability to impact our own forecast through our actions as a community. We can band together to first minimize the spread of COVID-19 by continuing to adopt public health practices like social distancing and masking. This supports a healthy workforce, and consumers that feel safe are more likely to go out and patronize businesses. Second, we can collaborate across sectors on shared economic development priorities and challenges. The pandemic has actually increased collaboration across our local institutions, which has been phenomenal. We can build on the momentum to define and focus on shared priorities and challenges in 2021. We see that no one organization or sector can solve these broad challenges alone. So we can really row in the same direction to tackle these challenges. Third, we can advance regional and state strategies. Our ability to prosper is tied to the communities around us, especially as we have labor force traveling in and out of Monroe County all the time. So our need for collaboration extends across county lines. Fourth, the pandemic has underscored a finding of earlier economic development studies, which is our community and opportunities for individuals will be stronger if we can diversify employment opportunities. These should include more future-focused industries like technology. However, at the same time, this ties to point number 5, which is that we need to connect these conversations to discussions around workforce. Employment opportunities cannot be divorced from the local labor market. We have a wealth of organizations that help train and place workers, but some employers are still struggling to find quality employees. We need to collaborate across sectors to address these challenges to transform our market. And then finally, support for small businesses. These small businesses form a major component of our local culture and economy, and our support for them in the coming few months will have an impact for years to come. And thank you so much. We will open up to questions.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Ms. Pearl and Ms. Rogers for the presentation. The data points and the trends that you all track so closely are very important for us to be following because it does have material impact on our fiscal policy here in Monroe County. So thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for your partnership and for your collaboration with county government. I'll check now to see if any council members have questions. We'll have about 5 minutes or so here before we move on to the next item. Do we have any questions or discussion regarding the presentation? Yes, Mr. McKim.
Yes, thank you very much, both Ms. Pearl and Ms. Rogers. And actually, I just wondered, that was a terrific presentation. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more about the construction industry and the issues that you saw in the construction industry, because I know that for people who are looking for people to do construction, often it's really difficult to find anybody. So it's actually kind of surprising to see the number of claims that you've cited in construction. So I just wanted to make sure that you mentioned, I think at one point, that maybe it had gone all the way back to June. So what you're seeing in January isn't just a seasonal downturn in construction because of the winter, right?
Right, exactly. And I think you've hit on something important about construction, because it's made up of a variety of trades, right? So whether you're a heavy construction, heavy machinery operator, if you're working on the roads, obviously work on I-69 is still occurring, but most of that's now in Morgan County, right? So, and those workers would follow with it. What we have seen generally statewide is that there's been a hit on specialty trades. And some of those that really require a lot of carpentry, things like that, building, things that public buildings has slowed down, as well as commercial building. So we're seeing a shift with local home remodelers. Yeah, give me somebody's name, please. Because you can't find it. It's like sporting equipment, everything's on 6-month back order. Mm-hmm. So it's really those folks where they were working in the commercial, industrial end of things, not necessarily home remodeling. But we're also not seeing a lot of new housing developments. And so for certain general contractors, they may be hurting from that and not hiring as many people as they would usually. That help?
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. Thank you.
Mr. Iverson?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. The first is COVID-19 has really driven home the fact that we need better access and ability for reliable broadband internet across the county. Can you talk about how that showed up in your research? And my second question is, when you were surveying the different businesses, did you ask questions about wages, wage inequality, or like whether or not wages were stagnating, wages were expected to rise, those sorts of questions?
Yeah, so second question first. The questions that we asked are, what are your outlook for the coming year, challenges, opportunities, key points. So we didn't get into that level of detail on wages. And then related to broadband, this is a theme that we've heard, particularly for anybody working further out in the county. And it affects not only businesses or individuals who may need to remote work, but also telehealth, education, and other opportunities. And it's interesting because if you go back in economic development, like electrical utilities were large supporters in the early days of economic developers. And because where electricity could go, people and community and business could go. Now we're seeing this with broadband. And so particularly in certain parts of the community where it's strong, it's a very valuable asset. I think of Smithville out towards Ellettsville. You have a really unique situation out there where you have space and you have a small town, but you also have a provider that way. You have, more access within the city of Bloomington. So it really depends on where you sit.
Great, thank you. Mr. Deckard.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both of you for coming and talking through this. I always appreciate getting this and getting some strong insight. My question is this: during all of this, we've had a lot of people that are appropriately cautious and concerned and sheltering and doing things, and we have others that maybe could have done that a little bit more. Does your outlook factor in any timidity about when we reach a point where vaccines or vaccine has been reached an acceptable level for people to begin to move around the cabin a little bit more? Do you factor in any timidity about people that just can't quite get to comfort to move around the cabin, so to speak, and do the things that drive all the things that make this home for a successful home for so many of us?
That's a really good point. And we don't factor timidity in, or the folks who may still be more inclined to stay at home, not go shopping. What we're tracking, frankly, is the spread and the vaccination in order to see, will there be an intersection that we can frankly forecast for later this year that shows when things are going to open up more fully. I think, I can't help but look at Mr. Iverson, because I do think that the health situation and how that's going and what we're monitoring at the State Department of Health is really going to move in tandem.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Any further questions? Councilmember Hawk? Need to unmute your microphone.
That's my pendulum clock was bonging and I turned it off a minute. When you were talking about the slowdown in construction, of course, I grew up in a construction family, so I do know that wintertime is slow for a lot of construction workers if we're talking residential construction. Right. But was I hearing you say that you think even residential construction has slowed down more than it was, say, this time last year? Because it seems to be exploding over here in the Richland Township area. We have a lot of new houses going in, and maybe you touched on it. We have a lot of great things to talk about over here. But indeed, for the people who really want to make sure they have good broadband access and so forth. But my next question would be, if you're seeing, when you're looking at your stats, are you seeing the construction still being strong in the Richland Township area and slowing down other places? And is that having to do with planning and zoning, or what can we do to make sure that all areas are successful?
Those are excellent points, and I'll go to the first question about construction generally. We saw a big hit in Monroe County during the spring and summer on construction. There was along with accommodation and food services, frankly, that construction and manufacturing were the ones that were hardest hit in the spring and early summer. Construction claims, job losses began to shrink, but it's still significant enough that it does concern us. I don't have data at hand to speak directly to how much of it is residential or is it commercial that's being hit the most. But we can dig into that and get you all further information if that would help. Certainly the construction industry isn't just residential though. So I'm anticipating if Richland Township has some new housing going up, there are people working in that industry. It may not be the construction workers who live in Monroe County though, for a variety of reasons. Did that help?
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions, we will conclude this presentation and move on to our next item. But just want to say thank you again to our presenters for joining us tonight. And as always, we look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. Up next is the Board of Commissioners request, and Ms. Purdy is with us. Councilmember Wiltz, I believe, will have a motion for us.
Council, I move to approve the Board of Commissioners' request for a new position, Fleet and Building Manager.
Second.
All right. Welcome, Ms. Purdy. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you guys. Yes, this was a position that I've kind of spoken to the board about a couple of times. It is a fleet and building manager, and this position would be responsible for ensuring the workload is handled by our current staff. They're going to maintain inventory of all of our non-highway fleet vehicles, including the sheriff. They will also be responsible for maintaining the rural transit, the Area 10, Federal 5311, 5339 buses that we get. Also, the inventory of all of our fleet drivers, ensuring validity of licenses. And they would also be responsible for ensuring the disposal of fleet vehicles. And they're going to be responsible for ensuring that our buildings, as I said at the beginning, are properly maintained and are proactively maintained. And it's not just the buildings, it would also be the exterior and the walkways, the property around those buildings. So that is the position, and went to PAC, went to WIS. WIS came back with recommendation of a classification of a PAT 5, and this would be a 40-hour work week position.
Okay, very good. So I think it'd be appropriate to have our PAC president also weigh in on this and just kind of give an overview of how that went with our latest meeting last week. Mr. Decker?
Sure, thank you. This did pass out of PAC in our last meeting, and I particularly want to thank Ms. Purdy and the commissioners for being very patient in that process. PAC certainly wanted to offer this position to council, as this being a little bit of a change in a direction and an investment for the county and the way that we do business, and wanted to offer that to the council. We received that input, then came back to PAC after talking with WIS to get a WIS recommendation on this. So I appreciate very much her patience in that process. But as you know, with everything that council does and PAC does, sometimes it takes a minute, but we want to absolutely get it right. And the other two members on PAC, Ms. Hawk, Councilman Spoonmore, a lot of good experience that really helped with that process. Some of the discussion that we've had in PAC, as it has been, I think, in previous council meetings, is that we certainly do manage a lot of building and a lot of fleet, and that is not likely to change down the road. And so part of that discussion that we had was how do we do that best? And this is the initiative that has been offered to us, and we can expect this to continue to be something that we talk about here in council and with our commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. Any other questions from council members at this point? Any comments? Mr. McKim?
Only that I am enthusiastically in support of this position. I think that this is, as you mentioned, we got a, as Mr. Decker mentioned, we have a lot of buildings and a pretty large fleet. And I just think this is all part of, kind of becoming, coming to grips with the fact that we are a larger, more mature organization. And, that means more IT, that means managing our buildings in a more professional manner, managing our fleet in a professional manner. And, I think everybody's done a great job in cobbling everything together so far, but it's time we move to the next level. So I'm glad that I'm glad that PAC reviewed this carefully and came to the conclusion they did, but I'm definitely supporting the request.
Hey, Mr. McKim? Mr. Deckard, yeah.
Sorry, I did want to add one other thing. I had cobbled some rough historical numbers the other day, and I believe that the rough approximate number I had determined was that the courthouse was around 56 years old when serious county discussion had begun to emerge about what to do with it. We all know historically there was a discussion about not having the courthouse, so Peter Iverson would not have that in his background today. Obviously, the community chose wisely not to go that route. But we do have to be mindful that our county buildings, as well as that fleet, they do age, and that happens, just like with all of us, it happens really quickly. And one thing I have said repeatedly in this process, it'll be nice for this person to assist the county in kind of thinking through those things before they become extreme problems, and we have a community-wide discussion because it comes up really, really quick. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I saw Ms. Hawk's hand first, then Ms. Munson, and then Ms. Wilkes.
The question I would have, and I haven't spoken with Ms. Purdy about this, but we have county buildings that belong to the county that we don't always think of as being a county building, and that has to do with the visitor center. That is a county building, and the convention center is a county building. So will he be doing, he, she, the applicant, or you hire, will they be doing any kind of making sure that those buildings are meeting requirements and so forth, or will there be any interaction at all?
No, those buildings would fall under the authority of the Convention and Visitors Commission. I'm not sure I'm using the correct title for that group, but yeah.
Right. I would just like to say, I think we need to make sure that we're following along to make sure they're doing their roof checks, their whatever, because they really are our buildings, and we have to make sure that in every way that they make some kind of report to the commissioners of when they're doing their updates. And perhaps they are doing that, but I think that's essential. I know at one time we had a problem that we had to have addressed. So
I think that certainly we could orchestrate it such that there is communication between the two entities. So it's definitely not a bad idea, recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Munson?
Thank you. Thank you. Question for Ms. Purdy. Could you fill us in more about the changes that are taking place with vehicle maintenance with the county's vehicle fleet? Because this is a major shift for us.
Yes, and I think I actually started talking about this during our budget sessions last year for the 2021 budget, because we have had to make the change, and we've not completed that. Actually, Commissioner Thomas and I will be coming to you guys at a later session to talk about a proposal that we have regarding the maintenance and the continued maintenance of those vehicles. But we had been using our highway department to maintain and manage our non-highway fleet vehicles, and that's not the correct use of that personnel based on their funding source. And so we have, once that was brought to our attention, we have worked very diligently in an attempt to get things corrected as to how we were managing our fleet. And so at this point in time, Highway is not managing or doing the repairs of our fleet. And we are looking at bringing to you guys information on another provider who would actually open up our options for maintenance, actually receiving the care to anyone who's also sort of associated with this particular vendor. And that way, if say an employee is out on their vehicle and they're having a problem and they're close to a particular service provider, they can just go into that service provider and they don't have to go maybe on to the complete other side of town to get the assistance that they may need. So we are definitely looking at doing business quite differently. And I think that, well, I know that Highway is actually very happy about it because they need their people to be working on their vehicles and not on ours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Wiltz and then Mr. Iverson.
Yes, actually, my question was along the lines of what Councillor Hawk was asking. So I feel like got that one figured out, but I will just take this opportunity to say that I too am very supportive of any position that will improve our ability to manage the county assets. And I really feel like this is a great step forward in kind of professionalizing that whole aspect of, it's a huge aspect of what we do. I think sometimes we take it for granted. So I'm happy to support this. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson.
More of a comment. I just wanted to reflect a little bit. Back when I was president of the Monroe County Environmental Commission, we did a lot of time, probably an inordinate amount of time, keeping track of different changes to different buildings and those sorts of things. And it is wonderful to see this. I think this is really going to help just in terms of asset lists, asset maintenance, scheduled maintenance, things like that. I think that's just, it's such a boon to so many areas of county government. So I'm definitely in support of this.
Thank you.
Mr. Iverson. Anything further from council? All right, we'll see if there's any public comment on this item. Do we have any public comment? I don't see any, so we will we'll have a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve the new fleet and building manager position, Councillor Munson?
Yes.
Councillor McKim?
Yes.
Councillor Deckard?
Yes.
Councillor Hawk?
Yes.
Councillor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Councillor Iverson?
Yes.
Councillor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank
All
you.
right. And so now we'll follow this up with item B on agenda item number 7.
Council, I move to approve the Board of Commissioners' request to amend the 2021 salary ordinance and add account line 15880 Fleet and Building Manager, to whose salary will be split between Funds 1000-0307 General Fund Fleet and 1170-0307 Public Safety Lit Fleet. 40 hours, Pat 5 classification, minimum level, which is $24.32 hourly exempt.
Second. I'm sorry, just quick point of order. Would you mind reading the percentage split for the record?
Certainly, the percentage split between the two funds is 50%. No, I'm sorry, it is not. It's 75% in county general and 25% in public safety lit.
Thank you. Second.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. Purdy, again. Any additional information you'd like to provide on this?
Yes, a couple of things. First of all, the hourly wage that as reported is accurate. However, in the agenda, I see that there is language that states that this is an approximate annual $44,262 salary. That's based on a 35-hour the minimum for the 40-hour salary is actually $50,586. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that that was clear for everyone. Something else I wanted to clarify or point out is that we already have money appropriated in County General for a position that we're not pursuing. And that amount in County General is I think could be put toward this particular salary. So I don't know how much you want to know from me regarding the salary, other than we already have some funding that we can kind of move around a little bit. But as reported, the minimum, the first year person would be at $50,586. I do also want to let you know that we have an interest within the county from someone who would be coming in with a 14-year county experience. And this person has had prior experience in maintenance and is very adept with the use of computers and software. So if I can convince that person that this would be a great job for them, I'm hoping to actually bring that person to you and ask for that approval.
Okay. All right. So my question kind of surrounds the use of the public safety lit funding for this particular position. I know we've got that split out by 25%, and there are some statutory requirements associated with how public safety lit funding can be used. Have you reviewed the requirements of all that, and you feel comfortable that this will meet that threshold?
Yes, actually the quarter percent is the way I looked at it was this position spends half its time with fleet, the other half of its time with the building. When we look at our fleet requirements, actually the majority of that is really our sheriff's department. And so by splitting the fleet portion in half, which is where we came up with 25%, we easily meet the criteria to use the public safety lit money.
Okay, so we can pretty clearly delineate the percentage of time that fleet staff is spending on law enforcement vehicles, and you feel comfortable with this. Okay, and I know I had talked to our attorney, Ms. Rice, as well, and my understanding was she felt that this was an appropriate use. I think she's having trouble kind of signing on into the meeting right now. Otherwise, we could ask her directly, but I'll check. But I feel comfortable with your explanation there, and I think that this would be appropriate. Any other questions or comments, Mr. McKim? Did I see your hand earlier?
President Spoonmore, you anticipated my questions, probably because I think we had talked about them before, but yeah, I think those have been adequately answered. Thank you.
Councilmember Hawk?
Yes, I do think that we will have to, be cautious about what we add on to public safety. There's things working through the legislature right now that could really cut into the dollars available to us there. But, we go through all kinds of fears every year that they're in session, and we always feel like nobody's really safe until they all go home. But I do think we have to be cautious about using that, because that at some point in time, we may have to really see what's going to happen. It looks like they're really pushing to get it through this year.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll see if there's any public comment. Have any public comment on this item? Oh, we have Margie Rice, whose hand's up. Yeah, let's give County Attorney Rice an opportunity to address this as well too, just for good measure. I don't see any other public comment at this time.
Can you guys hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. My internet crashed, so I joined by phone. Yeah, I can tell you that our public safety ordinance talks about the public safety dollars being spent on a law enforcement system or a police or law enforcement system. So clearly a law enforcement system could not work without its vehicles. So the vehicles, the maintenance of these vehicles are all part of the system. So it's absolutely an appropriate legal use of those dollars. So should you decide to allow the use of the public safety dollars, you'll be within the confines of the law. I do think the way that it's been structured, having 25% of the salary initially paid for with public safety lit, 75% with general fund makes sense. At the outset, if you want to go ahead and collect data about how much time the person is actually spending on law enforcement related activities, then you may be able to adjust that percentage. But I don't think anybody should have a concern at all about the legal use of these dollars for this position.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll go back and see if there's any public comment. Seeing none, we will do a roll call vote on the request to amend the salary ordinance.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
All right, up next is our legal department, item 8.
Council, I move to approve resolution 2021-09 interlocal agreement between this. Is that the right one?
To that resolution 2021-09.
Yeah. Interlocal agreement between the city of Bloomington and Monroe County, Indiana regarding building code authority.
Second.
All right.
And I don't know if Dave Schilling is online for this. I think he was listed on the agenda. If not, I'm happy to address it.
I thought I heard Dave may be out of town. So yeah, why don't we have Ms. Rice address this for us?
Yeah, so I think this is a renewal. Dave is the attorney who primarily worked on this, but I believe this is a renewal of our building interlocal with the city. It's something that we've had in place for quite some time. Essentially, interlocal cooperation is something that is specifically allowed by statute. And the county and the city have always thought it's more efficient to run one building department. It also serves the public a lot better to continue to do it this way. So I don't have the details about the amount in front of me, but I'm happy to try to field any questions you might have about it.
Have any questions from council? Mr. McKim?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I certainly support continuing this arrangement. I think it's in the best interest of the community.
Sorry about that. I saw the unmuted mic and thought you wanted to speak. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any other questions or comments from council members. So we will check with the public, see if there's any public comment on this. And it looks like Mr. Shelton is present and would like to make a comment. Welcome, Mr. Shelton.
Thank you. Jim Shelton with the Chamber. We certainly support this, and we encourage every opportunity that you can find for the county and the city to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve resolution 2021-09, Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim. Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. And thanks, Ms. Rice, for filling in. Up next is item 9, our prosecutor's office.
Council, I move to approve the prosecutor's request for additional appropriations in Fund 8123-9621 Stop Grant in the amount of $99,748.92 in the personnel category.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second, and Prosecutor Oliphant is here with us, and Executive Director Beth Hamlin as well.
Hi. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Beth.
This is an annual renewal of our STOP grant funding that funds 2 half-time positions in our special victims unit that we formed a couple of years ago. It pays for half the salary of our domestic violence prosecutor and half the salary for our sex crime deputy prosecutor. It pays a portion of their benefits and also allows us to hire part-time an assistant in that special victims unit. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Got it. Thank you. Let's see if we have any questions or discussion on this. Mr. McKim.
And so all the remainder of the salaries and benefits are paid out of public safety lit?
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Right. Do we have any public comment? Does not appear so. So we'll do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve additional appropriations in Fund 8123-9621, Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
All right. And up next is our prosecutor's office again with item 9B.
Council, I move to approve the prosecutor's request for the creation of a new account line and simultaneously approve an additional appropriation in Fund 1000-0009, General Fund Prosecutor, in the amount of $68,000 in the supplies category.
Is that correct? Supplies?
Why would it be supplies?
In the
Contract.
agenda, it's contractual.
Contractual.
In the amount of $68,000 in the contractual category.
That I can second.
All right. Motion and a second.
All right. So can everybody hear me?
Yes. Well,
Okay, great, thanks. So I have an ethical obligation to identify racial and ethnic disparities that arise from prosecutorial decisions in Monroe County and reforming policy and practice to mitigate disparate impact. So to that end, the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office would like to contract with Indiana University Public Policy Institute Center for Health and Justice Research on a racial justice project to track and evaluate prosecutorial decision-making. The specific goals of the project are as follows. We're going to pull multiple criminal justice data sources, including police and the courts, probation department, to identify gaps in the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office data infrastructure. We're going to analyze and summarize individual level justice data for 2019 to identify where racial disparities exist. Interview community and justice system stakeholders to capture perceptions of racial and ethnic disparities, and then work toward understanding the mechanisms for contributing to racial and ethnic disparities, and then propose solutions to reduce them. My long-term vision is to ensure that we have accurate and thorough data collection and analysis by the prosecutor's office. We'd like to create ultimately a public-facing dashboard to make data available to anyone online, increasing our transparency. And we would like to track and release data for actions like charging decisions, plea offers, and sentencing. The base cost for this project is $58,000. The additional $9,000 or $10,000 is for anticipated bulk data requests from Indiana Prosecutor Case Management System, Odyssey, and Quest. The project is anticipated to take 10 months beginning in April of 2021, should the funding be approved. And then the anticipated final report and policy brief would be then due in January of 22. Should it take longer to complete the work, there is a 6-month extension that would be available without additional costs. Should the council have any questions from the researcher, Dr. Eric Grauman is the lead on the project. He is an applied criminologist with the O'Neill School at IUPUI. He has a PhD in criminal justice from Michigan State, and he's here with us this evening in case we need him. So any questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Oliphant. We'll check with council now. I saw Mr. McKinnon's hand first and then Ms. Munson.
Thank you very much. So in looking at the concept proposal, I noticed under the research and evaluation activities, item B says analyze and summarize a cross-section of at least 6 months of historical individual level justice and case management system data. And I'm wondering, do you think it is going to be around 6 months or quite a bit more? And if so, is the 6 months enough to get a good understanding of what it is that, of what the situation is?
Hi,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dr. Grauman.
Hi, this is Eric Grauman with IUPUI and the Center for Health and Justice Research. We initially proposed at least 6 months. Through our conversations, we've realized that we're going to need at least 12 months worth of data. And we're probably going to go a little bit longer than 12 months. It's looking more like 18 months worth of data that we'll be pulling to try to piece together the various decisions that are made by the prosecutor's office.
Oh, excellent. And did I understand from the presentation earlier that this would be primarily 2019 data?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the reason I ask is just because I think there may be a lot of anomalies in 2020, and you'd hate to focus a study at this point exclusively on 2020 data. Just
Absolutely. We've tried to plan for the realization that the system looks completely different now as we manage the pandemic than it did before.
Thank you.
Councilor Munson.
Actually, my question overlapped Councilor McKim's, but first I wanted to say what we're deciding tonight here is so much more than an additional appropriation. I'm very excited about this project. And I too was concerned about having just 6 months of data and that it not be data during the period of the pandemic. So those questions are already answered. And I guess the other concern that I have is that there will be data from both city and county law enforcement included in this study. Is that correct?
Yes, Ms. Munson, we have been discussing pulling from all of the law enforcement agencies that we deal with.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson, and then Ms. Hawk.
Yeah, once again, I want to celebrate your efforts at transparency. I want to make sure that is something that goes through. I mean, as you know, there have been so many studies in our nation's history on race that have been studies that went nowhere. They were never funded. They were never enacted upon. And I think that this is a great plan to make sure that we have the data and then we can act on the data, depending on what that data is. So I really like the idea of a dashboard. I really like the idea of this final plan being presented to us. Ms. Oliphant, are there other communities in Indiana that are doing this same work? Is this something that you're required to do by an association or agency, or is this something that Monroe County is unique in?
So in Indiana, Monroe County is fairly early to this. I think we might be the first county that's taking on a study of this nature. Dr. Grauman may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that maybe Marion County is in the initial talks of a similar type of study, but we are definitely one of the first.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Iverson. Ms. Hawk?
Yes. Can you
Could I
tell
hear
me?
from Dr. Grauman?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just add on top of that. So there has been a little bit of traction for prosecutors' offices to start taking a deeper dive into their data and making their data more transparent for constituents to see how decisions are made. Those dashboards that are being produced tend to be in large metropolitan areas. So in my view, this is the first study that's going to be advanced that involves a jurisdiction with less than 150,000 residents. Most of the studies are in jurisdictions that have more than 500,000 residents.
That makes me very proud.
All right, Ms. Hawk.
Yes, a couple of things. One is a process question. Since most contracts have to be handled through the commissioner's office, is this also one that the commissioners would be signing on this contract? Would they be preparing the contract, or is that actually is different for this particular thing?
Ms. Hawk, we are planning to approach and have had some initial conversation with the commissioner's office to get a signature on this, as I feel that they must sign all of our contracts in the county.
Right, and so that's the reason. The reason why I asked that was I would have liked to have seen the commissioners on here saying yes, they are in favor of this, because I do believe that it will be up to them to okay a contract. That being said, but I also wondered time frame of, do you anticipate there'll be a lot of interaction with other departments, let's say with the sheriff's office or Ellisville Police or the city of Bloomington? Is that going to be any kind of a time frame or hours spent for them? Or is this all going to be just looking at data that's already available?
I think there's two ways to answer that question. The basic answer is yes, we're integrating every justice agency that has contact in Monroe County. We are going to rely on the data that they provide us to make sense of various discretionary decisions. So we will have access to existing records, but we're also going to advance a qualitative piece where we'll be doing surveys and interviews with justice system representatives to understand their perceptions of racial and ethnic disparities within the county. We've tried to budget how long that's going to take in our timeline. We have good relationships with Monroe County's probation department. We have good relationships with Monroe County Community Corrections. We have good relationships with the Indiana Department of Corrections. I think we needed the prosecutor's office to help us generate data there. And I think we can be able to work backwards to build better relationships with law enforcement partners as well.
So I just wondered if you had them on board and if they're supportive of doing this and understand it might take more of their personnel time and so forth, if indeed that's the case. I would have liked to have seen that kind of support coming here before we made this decision. I know that most of the people on the council are just going to go vote for it anyway, and I understand that. It's just I think that the other players here that will actually be involved and need to participate should have been on board, sending us information saying we support this, we want to do this, and we're going to, work with you to do it. So we are where we are.
We may want to check with our attorney and Ms. Rice. Is there any requirement that the commissioners bring it to us first, or are we able to make additional appropriations without the commissioners' blessing?
Yeah, you can
Contract.
certainly, yes, you certainly can approve the additional appropriation first. There is a county code that says all service agreements must be approved by the commissioners. And as the prosecutor said, she's going to take that to the commissioner. So the order in which it happens, contract first, then additional and contract, that's not dictated by the code and can happen in either direction.
And in order for the money to be spent, it has to have the commissioner's signature, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And all contracts will indicate in there that it's subject to having the appropriate funds. So if the funds are already there in place, then once the contract's signed, they can hit the ground running.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Deckard?
Thank you very much. And I want to thank our prosecutor for coming back this evening for this, and also Dr. Grauman for also coming back. And I want to reiterate something I said in the last meeting. Look, the easy thing for the prosecutor from an easy perspective would be to not do the study, right? And I suspect there's a lot of prosecutors across the state that are not doing this tonight, and that is an easier answer for them. But these are tough issues, and the public has said they want data. They want to know what happens. They also want to debunk the mystery of who it happens to. And so this county has a long history of trying to get that data. And I guess that and trying to have better informed policies. I mean, the STOP grant, which we did just a moment ago, someone somewhere thought that idea, that funding and that support was something, and they tried it, and now it has gone to other jurisdictions such as ourselves. I guess the question that I have is, maybe for the public's consumption, could the prosecutor talk a little bit about how this might inform her policies and how things might be carried out based on whatever we get back, and we can't predict what that is. And then maybe what application that might have for other communities who are watching this but not having the discussion tonight. And maybe even I'll extend it further to our legislature, which are constantly changing the way that our laws are classified and what sentencing means and who gets what. We have a very active legislature, as we talked about earlier. We also have a very, seems to be open-minded Chief Justice that is constantly looking at our system. And so do you see, I've said a lot there, but what applications do you see post-study that might inform what happens next? Prosecutor Oliphant.
Thanks, Councillor Deckard. I think that these are very complicated issues, and I think that it's very important, if we're going to move the needle in a positive direction, that we have data to inform us. Where are these disparities lying? What are their causes? It's not going to be simple solutions, but if we can analyze that, we can hopefully generate policies and try to nip those racial disparities in the bud. I think that transparency is something that a lot of people are looking for in a modern day from their prosecutor's office. I think we, in a lot of ways, our justice system operates in a black box, and a lot of people don't know, how the decisions are made and what the process is. And so I'm a little hopeful that we can be more transparent and show our community what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think there's a big trend of that nationally. As Dr. Grauman mentioned, there are several communities, larger communities such as Chicago, Philadelphia, who are putting out these dashboards and otherwise just really opening the doors to their decision making. And I'm not saying that I've been perfect at that, but it's something that I'm hoping to improve upon. And in that way, being better informed on how we're making decisions and have a better sense of trust, hopefully, in the community.
All right. Anything further from council? We'll go to the public now and see if we have any public comment. Looks like we have a few members of the public who would like to make some comments. And just as a reminder, we have a 3-minute limit on public comment, and I'll have our TSD representative play that tone again for anyone who may not have been here at the beginning of the meeting, just so you can hear what it'll sound like at 30 seconds, time remaining. So commenters will hear that tone when 30 seconds is remaining on their time, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. First in line, it looks like is Pamela Davidson. Welcome, Ms. Davidson. And feel free to begin whenever you're ready.
I appreciate your listening to my comments. I have sent each of the county council members a rather exhaustive email with a number of my issues about concerns. And this study, I'm kind of mystified because there's a huge incident in the country of police stopping races disparately. We've seen it here in our own town. Then by the time it gets to the prosecutor's office, there is vast discretion already. There's bias and discretion before a case gets to case management. By the time it gets to the case management stage, the data that you're going to look at, the deal is done. There's so many steps before that that give us no insight or enlightenment as to how it got there at that time. It's just data at that time. I would hope that our communal goal is to arrest and prosecute far fewer. And I see problems already. The discretion, again, the prosecutors have is vast. We've learned that every day since January 6th. So there are, I want to know why the prosecutors' felony filings are up 34%. I want to know why she elected to stop a diversion program that kept minor offenses out of the criminal system. All of that has led to more incarceration, more cost, more staff positions. We are feeding a self-perpetuating system. When I heard her say transparency, let us have data like that, because if you want confidence, we do not understand why that's happened. There's a lot of chatter. I heard her say we're going to involve law enforcement. How in the world would that happen? Because they've arrested someone, they're invested, they want to see, it's like a prosecutor. Their mission is to have a prosecution, a conviction at all costs, no matter what. That really is their avowed goal. So law enforcement's in on that. They're part of the same group. So I don't even understand how that would help us with this data. But what I really want to say is that by the time this study, this research is looked at, the data is cooked, the bias is in, the discretion has been exercised, be it judicious or not, and it doesn't do anything to help us reduce the number of people in that filthy COVID jail and the cost to families, jobs lost, the process we put people in for nothing, a lot of times for some of the offenses that are chosen to be prosecuted. So that's what I want to know. Reduce the strain, because we're creating an insular industry that will only grow because of our choices. Just because we can does not mean we should. We should be awfully judicious in who we.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davidson, for your comments. We'll now move on to our next speaker, Troy Hatfield. Welcome, Mr. Hatfield.
Sorry about that. There was a miss button.
Oh, looks like, so Mr. Hatfield is not speaking? Or is he?
No, he is. Give him one second.
I'm sorry. Okay, okay.
Hi, Council. Thank you very much. Troy Hatfield, Deputy Chief Probation Officer. Our presiding judge, Mary Ellen Diekoff of the local courts, asked me to speak tonight in support of this project. And just wanted to let the council know that we are very much in support of it. And we will offer any assistance that is necessary to help move this project forward, whether that's from trying to assist in obtaining court data, probation data, community corrections data. We're happy to assist in any way we need to help move the project forward. And on another note, I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Grauman and his staff on several projects over the past few years. And you would be extremely hard pressed to find someone better to advance this project. We feel that it's a very positive direction. And again, we would ask that you support it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hatfield, for your comments. And our next speaker is Ruth Height. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but welcome.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Ruth Eidt, and I've been involved in some Monroe County race and criminal justice studies through the NAACP and UU Church over the past few years. Data going back as far as 1997 shows consistent racial disparities, and I support Prosecutor Oliphant's proposal to work with the IU Public Policy Institute to look deeply into this issue. Based on the research I have done in this area, I have several requests that I hope can be considered if this proposal is funded. First, this work should be the basis for ongoing collection, analysis, and reporting. It is critical to look at trends over time, not just points in time. This allows us to see how policy changes or changes in the prosecutor's office might affect the outcomes that we're studying. Second, to the extent allowable by law, the raw data, not just summaries on dashboards, should be made available for public analysis. As we have seen with COVID-19 data, dashboards tell part of the story, but when there's access available to the underlying data, this opens the door and allows others to build their own analysis and display engines and to evolve the displays and the analysis over time, because relevant information does change as laws change, and so on. I think that to build trust in the integrity of this project, the final report should be made public, not just a 1 to 3 page summary. The county is paying for this research, and I do think citizens deserve transparency. So I would strongly encourage that. I hope, and it sounds like will be the case, that data from IU police will also be investigated. We see quite a disproportionate number of prosecutions, particularly with marijuana possession for the Black population from IU police. And I think that's something that as a county, we need to understand. Finally, when considering disparities in defendant charges and outcomes, I hope that the researchers, if possible, can look at the race and ethnicity of the victim in cases where there is a victim to see if there are any correlations there with the level of charges and outcomes for the defendant. Thank you for your time. I want to thank Prosecutor Oliphant, and I hope the council will fund this proposal.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Height. And thanks to all of our guests who provided public comment on this item tonight. I know, for me personally, and I know for you all, that public input is very important to our decision making, and it can raise some additional questions. So I want to check with council one more time here before we do vote on this, if there's any other questions that have come up in light of the comments that we've heard, Mr. McKim and then Mr. Iverson.
Thank you very much, and thank you to members of the public who made comment on this as well. I would actually like to see if the Prosecutor Oliphant would be willing to address a couple of issues that have been raised both here and a couple of other venues. But one is a discontinuation of diversion program, which kind of comes as a surprise to me to hear about. And then second is the statistic that your office's filings are up 34%. I was wondering if you might be willing to address both of those issues and anything else that you've heard here that you'd like to make comment on.
Sure, thank you, Councilor McKim. First, I have not discontinued any diversion program. Minor offenses such as possession of marijuana and shoplifting continue to be eligible for our pretrial diversion program. And often people can do that program more than one time. That program does result in a dismissal ultimately. I extended eligibility for pretrial diversion to some level 6 felonies, including drug and syringe possession and some theft cases. I believe that Ms. Davidson is referring to anecdotes that she's come across from a deputy public defender and a former deputy prosecutor about the unsanctioned practice of dismissing cases in exchange for community service or treatment. It was actually against policy to do that under the Gall administration, but it had been happening nonetheless. And so having come up from being a deputy, I knew that that practice was happening. So I asked my staff to stop doing that except under extraordinary circumstances. The reasons for that is that first, there's no transparency as to what's happening in those cases because there's no written agreement. And often the dismissal order does not reflect the basis for dismissing a case that's months old. Second, the cases would they'd be pending for months or years, awaiting for the defendant to meet their end of the bargain. And in some cases, when we would eventually receive a motion for discharge under Criminal Rule 4 from the defense. For those of you who don't know, Criminal Rule 4 requires us to take someone to trial within a year. That burden is solely upon the state. And so if we aren't able to do that and the delay isn't attributable to the defense and on the record, the case has to be dismissed. And finally, though, we do indeed have a lot of discretion. There is a specific set of statutes pertaining to pretrial diversion, and this method did not fit the minimum requirements by statute. As for the felony filings have increased by 34% over the last 4 years. But misdemeanor filings have trended substantially downward during that time. 2020 is likely not a representative year because police in my office have been very judicious about our resources and mindful for the potential of COVID-19 infection. But just to give you some numbers, in 2020, we filed 2,213 misdemeanor cases. That was down from 3,161 the year before. We filed 1,205 felonies, and that was down from 1,511 the year before. We do have some data about the types of cases that have been filed in recent years, ending with 2019, that shows that there's an increase in many types of cases, not just drug cases, though those have actually gone up. But for example, batteries have increased, burglaries, operating while intoxicated, domestic violence cases, and sex crimes have all gone up significantly. And I don't know if you've paid attention to the news, but homicide has been a lot higher in the last year than it has been in recent times too. So I hope that answers your question, Councilor McKim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson, did you have?
I did. Yeah, I appreciate the comments from the public, and I did want to encourage the public to continue to push the council. I think it's very important for us to hear from the public to think more longitudinally, and I think it's also important to hear from staff that there's going to be cross sector work on this too. One of the really interesting things that I think that we need to know as a council is these outside perspectives, especially Ms. Ait and her questions about ways that we can be better about asking questions and finding data points that maybe we're not addressing and may not be addressed in the scope of this study, which is all right, but we need to keep at it. So I appreciate the comments that were said tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Iverson. Ms. Hawk?
I wanted to thank Mr. Hatfield for coming forward to speak, which really helped to reassure me that there is communication with the courts, with probation, with community correction, and they understand that it's going to take some working together to make any of this work out so that we can get correct information. I was surprised to hear that someone thinks that, I look every day at the bookings. We get those in by email, how many bookings we have, how many's in the jail population. I don't always download the jail population because, it's a lot to keep on your computer every day. But the bookings, I look every day, and I just can't understand why anybody would think that's gone way up. Certainly, it does tell you where most of those problems are. And we can look at that, and I appreciate that information, but it gives me a greater confidence to vote in favor of this because of Mr. Hatfield coming forward and saying that he had worked with the courts and so forth, and that they all understand and support this. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Hawk. Councilor Wiltz.
Yes, thank you. I was wanting to just clarify one thing based on one of the comments. I've looked at the work that I believe Ruth Eit and Guy Loftman have worked together on some reports, and I've seen at least one, and it's very compelling and well done, in my opinion. And so I would encourage Dr. Grauman to take some of their suggestions seriously as they move forward. Obviously, we're not changing the study's design by any stretch, but my understanding from the description of the study is that if the goal is a data dashboard for the prosecutor's office, then we will be left post-study with a protocol for data collection, and presumably systems in place to do that. I don't speculate on like costs and funding and that kind of thing yet, but to Ms. Seitz' point about continuing this and having this not just be a snapshot, but allowing this to be something that lives on and continues to inform the public, and in my crazy mind, hopefully starts to cover more and more of county government in terms of providing transparency. So my question is my interpretation correct that this will be something that is sustainable long-term in terms of sharing information?
Councilor Wiltz, that's my ultimate goal, is to, and part of this was informed and inspired by the work of Mr. Loftman and Ms. Eit. They identified to me that we have a better need for tracking this data reliably and making it available to the public for analysis. And so it is our hope that we will identify what our gaps are in terms of data collection and come up with a sound way of doing that and making it available for study.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, I want to thank the prosecutor's office and Ms. Oliphant in particular. I think this has been a very well thought out plan, very thoughtful from the time when we first started discussing this, and you brought us into the conversation months ago, to all the collaboration that we're seeing with other involved groups and county government as well too. So thank you for all of that, and I look forward to supporting this. We will now have a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve a new account line and an additional appropriation in Fund 1000-0009, Councilor Hawk?
Yes.
Councilor Wiltz?
Yes.
Councilor Deckard?
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Councilor Munson?
Yes.
Councilor McKim?
Yes.
Councilor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Have a good evening. And next up is the next couple of items with council office. Item 10 is next.
Council, approval of encumbrances by the council is required for accounting and auditing purposes. I move that all of the encumbrances listed on the agenda and the details for those encumbrances be approved summarily. I move to incorporate into the minutes all the details regarding such encumbrance. Those details were provided to and reviewed by the County Council in advance.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Hello, Ms. Ridge. And we have Michelle joining us. Is there any additional information we need on this?
I'm going to start out and just say that the council approved a lot of encumbrances at the beginning of January. When the highway submitted their request, it was 4 pages long. I missed 3 of those pages. So we are coming back and asking for encumbrances on some of the information that was missed on that original request. Also, during that time, Ms. Ridge is revamping the way that the budget is going to start being presented for the cumulative bridge. So in the next item that you're going to hear will be unencumbering. And so those items will be unencumbered in order to help facilitate this change in the structure of the budget. So I just wanted to kind of jump that in there, and we can kind of talk about it at that time too. So.
Got it. Ms. Ridge, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, Kim is correct. And I know I've thrown a lot at them trying to change this budget. And the reason why I'm trying to make the changes is because, for one, when they went to Lao, I do remember it being stated that every year when we bring all of these culvert projects and the smaller bridge projects, that we're going to run out of numbers in the system. So that's been a huge concern. So I did a little bit of research, and in the 30 plus years that I've been there, we've always treated Cume Bridge a little bit different than the other budgets, and then brought it in the spring once we've set up our projects. So we're gonna, and I think the reason for that is for the tracing of these projects, what the cost is, and so we could set up future projects and base it on those previous costs. Well, we do that now in our asset management program. We don't have to be so detailed through our budget. So what we'll be doing is de-appropriating, some of these smaller projects. We'll always have our bigger bridge projects, federal aid projects, but moving forward, we'll try and mimic our stormwater budget, where we'll have a pipeline, we'll have gravel. That's how we'll be able to track our projects that way. We won't be adding all of these lines. We won't have I think in talking with Kim and everyone, that this will make things a lot better moving forward after we get it set up and come back next month to get those lines. And then we'll just treat this as regular budget and come in September like with all of our other budgets.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council? Any comments? All right.
Just a minute.
Yeah, Ms. Hawk.
Ms. Ridge, I had asked you to check to see if there's any reason why we did it this way for 30 years, other than somehow the other got started that way. But I just wanted to make sure there was nothing at the state level that said we had to do it in that fashion. And you were going to check that out.
There is nothing that I can find. I have emailed with the State Board of Accounts. Basically, they sent me the Indiana code of just basically how those funds can be spent, which is how they are spent on our bridge maintenance, taking care of those types of items. It doesn't detail you on how you have to set the budget up. I also reached out to other counties, got sample budgets of theirs, and nobody is doing a Cume Bridge budget like this. So again, I think it was one, we always did it that way, so we kept doing it that way. And another, it was just to track the cost of projects, which now, like I said, we do that in our asset management program. So it's kind of just an obsolete method that we were doing. So I think it'll help Kim and the council's office and our department of not so many different funds, not 4 pages or 6 pages of a small budget.
Thank you.
Sounds very good. All right, any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve encumber appropriations from 2020 to 2021 budget year, Councillor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
All right. And now we'll move on to item 10B.
Council, I move approval to unencumber appropriations from 2020 to 2021 in Fund 1135-0000 Cumulative Bridge, which was approved at the January 12th regular session in the following account lines: 39392 Rockport Road, Culvert, TBD, $10,466.03. 39393 Wampler Road, Culvert, number 2223 at $6,835.67. 39394 Gettys Creek Road, Culvert, number 1402 at $7,284.39. 39396 Roberts Road, Culvert, number 503 at $9,146.92. 39397 Brighton Road, Culvert, number 2200 at $11,685.80. 39398 Wampler Road, Culvert, number 2196 at $6,619.45. 39399 Flatwoods Road, Culvert, number 1820 at $7,169.10. 39400 Darrell Drive, Culvert, number 814 at $909.64. 39401 Birch Road, Culvert, number 200 at $14,303.17 for a total of $74,420.17.
Second.
All right. Ms. Shell, anything further, or have we sufficiently covered this one?
I think we covered it. It's just going to unappropriate, and then Ms. Ridge is going to move forward with additionals next month.
Got it. Any questions or comments from council? Ms. Hawk?
Yes, just for the public, because they might very well be interested in when that culvert's going to be replaced in their neighborhood. So, Ms. Ridge, will this information still be available if they go to the highway information so they can see what culverts are in line or whatever?
I don't see Ms. Ridge on the call.
I was going to say, I think she left.
But this is something
I bet she lost.
we could follow up with her on that question and get
Right.
the information.
It was just, I know sometimes people are very interested in that if they're having a problem with such things. So.
Yeah, let's record that question and make sure we get a response for that. That's a good question. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, let's check and see if we have any public comment. I do not see any, so we'll do a roll call vote, please. Ms. Miller?
On the motion to approve unencumbering certain appropriations in Fund 1135-0000, Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
All right, we'll stick with the council office for number 11 here, and Ms. Rice, I believe, will be joining us for this one as well.
Council, I move to approve Resolution 2021-11 to address administrative matters and agendas.
Good evening. This is a
Second.
resolution to, oops, sorry, Jeff.
you're good. We're
So
good.
this is a resolution that is, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, sorry. This resolution will formalize a practice that the council has had for some time, which is to allow the president and staff to request that come into the council and to set an agenda for each meeting. It also will allow then a process, view the agenda, vote to adopt it, or if a council member wishes to amend the agenda to add something that's not on there, let's say a liaison gets a request from a department or any council member hears from somebody and they want to move to amend the agenda to add something, it allows a process to do that. So then a vote to adopt either as presented or as amended. And again, I think it'll clear up any confusion. From time to time, people have questions about, hey, I submitted something, but it didn't make the agenda. Why is that? And we can explain that we have this process for determining the agenda. And if they want to ask their liaison to amend it, they certainly can do that.
Got it.
So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Rice. We'll check with council to see if there are any questions or discussion on this. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Hawk.
I believe what we saw from the council office was that there's going to be, as requests are being made, before anybody's even looked at an agenda, that it's now going, those requests are going to go on the Dropbox. So we'll all be able to see, every council member will be able to see in real time what the department's needs are or what they want to come to the council for. And so that I really appreciate that, because then that gives us an opportunity to research a bit before we would have a meeting. But then we can look at what council leadership has determined there's room on the agenda for. What the process is going to do is it will allow for, in case we would have some rogue leadership, and that's what many years ago we kind of had a problem like that, where you just couldn't get something on the agenda if they didn't like it. But all you had to do is have someone put the motion on the floor, put it on there, and if you had enough votes to get it on the agenda, you could overrule it. So it all will work out. And I appreciate it, because I think that these agendas that we're setting in meetings for 3 and 4 hours, that has to stop. It just does. It's just too many hours. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. And I think that kind of leads into something that I am looking forward to as well too, that we'll be able to vote on our agenda at the beginning of the meeting, so that it's very clear what our business is for that meeting and we don't get sidetracked on anything else. So that will be, if this does pass, that is a new practice that we would implement beginning with our next meeting, where we'll have for each meeting going forward, the first vote that we take will be to approve the agenda, and then we'll move forward on those items of business from there. Mr. Deckard.
Thank you very much. I was just going to say, I like this. And one of the things that a commentary I want to make is I appreciate, particularly under your leadership, Councilor Spoonmore, that you are Chairman, President Spoonmore, that our work sessions have really been about the work that's coming up, and our regular session that we have has been a continuation of that. We obviously have exception because we're a governmental body in a pandemic, but all that said, I think this is a furtherance of that, of making a highly transparent public following process as much as you can do with the difficulties of what we deal with and do. So I appreciate the work on this to get this before us.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. Any other questions or comments on this resolution? So my question, Ms. Rice and Ms. Schell, what will be if this does pass, how do we intend to distribute this out to the various departments and offices.
I would expect that this would be a resolution that would be distributed to department heads, but I'm open to other suggestions if you or Kim think it should be distributed differently.
Okay. And that would be.
That was my plan, was to send it out to department heads and financial managers.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll leave that decision-making up to you to get it into the right hands if it does pass. So thank you. Ms. Hawk?
Yes, I would just like the message that goes out to the department heads and financial managers to be very clear that we still want to see what their needs are and be put on that list that you're providing to us, Michelle. But for them to absolutely understand, that doesn't mean it'll be part of the agenda. It's just part of keeping us all informed as to what the different departments' needs might be.
Thank you. Okay, well, if there's nothing further from council here, we'll see if there's any public comment on this resolution. Does not appear to be any. So we'll do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve Resolution 2021-11, Councillor McKim?
Yes.
Councillor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Councillor Munson?
Yes.
Councillor Hawk?
Yes.
Councillor Iverson?
Yes.
Councillor Deckard?
Yes.
Councillor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
All right. Next up will be item 12, boards and commission citizen appointments.
Council, I move approval of the following citizen appointments to certain council boards and commissions. For the Sophia Travis Community Services Committee, Josh Johnson for a term of 1 year expiring on 1/1/2022. For the Environmental Commission, Andrew Manley, I'm correcting the term date from our last meeting, I believe, from February 1, 2023 to the new term end of February 1, 2022.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments on these nominations? And corrections to previous appointments? All right, any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Councillor Munson?
Yes.
Councillor Deckard?
Yes.
Councillor Hawk?
Yes.
Councillor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Councillor Iverson?
Yes.
Councillor Wiltz?
Yes.
Councillor McKim?
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0 to 1.
All right. And next is a resignation of a citizen member
Yes.
to one of our boards and commissions.
Council, I move approval of the resignation of Rafael Swagowski from the Environmental Commission.
Second, but have we normally ever approved resignations before?
No idea.
Well,
I think that's more of an announcement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's certainly fine to vote, essentially that you're accepting it and acknowledging it.
Yeah.
I actually, if I could comment, I actually kind of like this, and I'll tell you why. I following who goes on and off of our citizens commissions, I think it's helpful for us to kind of publicly acknowledge that, track that, and I know about a year and a half ago or so, we had a little bit of confusion on some terms on Women's Commission. I think this might jog our brains, all of us, and not just maybe necessarily leaving it just to Kim Shell and other friends in the council office.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. I agree. I think it's, it certainly would solidify a new vacancy and make it, an official, once the resignation is accepted. the vacancy becomes official at that point. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll do any public comment on this?
Did we, if we're gonna do it, I think we need a second.
Oh, I seconded.
Oh, okay.
We've already begun discussing anyway, so the second is kind of superfluous, but yes, I second.
Any public comment? All right, we'll do a roll call vote to accept the resignation.
To accept okay, I missed it. Who resigned?
Member of the Environmental Commission, Rafael Swikowski.
Oh, okay.
And he did submit a formal resignation letter, right?
Okay.
Yes, he did.
Whenever you're ready, Ms. Miller.
Okay. Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Oh, I don't know. Well, yes, I guess. I would. Highly unusual.
Right, you're going to deny the
I gotta stay on.
Well, you know, but six would still be enough either way. All right. Next up is item 13, approval of minutes as presented.
Council, I move to approve the summary minutes for December 8, 2020 and January 12, 2021 regular sessions, and December 22nd, 2020 and January 26, 2021 work sessions as presented.
Second.
All right. Any edits or comments or changes that need to be made to the minutes? Okay. Any public comment on the minutes as presented? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, next up is item 14, council comments. Do we have any council members who would like to make closing comments this evening? I saw Ms. Hawk, Mr. Iverson, and then Mr. Deckard.
Yes, I wanted to respond to when I presented what was going on at the state having to do with that highway bill. And I see that there are some here on the council who really wasn't in favor of that amendment because they removed the qualification that you had to have the wheel tax. Well, let me tell you, I really like the fact they were going to say you have to have the wheel tax because we already had it. And I thought that really meant that we had already put, it's amazing. Yes, I supported the wheel tax, though many people didn't, but I supported it. And so that really, I thought, showed that this county was putting our roads and so forth in you know, a great deal of importance. But if they had to remove that to get this bill to go through, then I would support that too, because we definitely need to have the reduction down to no more than 40% of the total amount of money to be used the way they were going to make us do it. And we needed the money for snow removal and ice removal. So sometimes you have to negotiate and you don't get to win at everything every time.
Got it. It's a good message there. Any other comments from council members? Okay. I'm sorry. We had Iverson and Deckard next. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is Black History Month, and there are a lot of things going on in the community, even though we're all in lockdown. Indiana University has a good listing of all these things. There's coffee with James Madison. There's Netflix viewing sessions, there's lectures, there's all sorts of things going on to celebrate Black History Month here in Monroe County. So I'm going to put the link in the chat, and then I'll share it out on social media too. But make sure to attend some of those events, read a book, do all sorts of things. It's Black History Month, so let's celebrate.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Iverson. Mr. Deckard?
Thanks for saying that, Peter. I just wanted to say Jim Shelton from the Chamber spoke earlier about cooperation between the county and the city. And while we don't usually hear talk about hires at the city, I do want to mention one. I was very happy to see that the city brought on John Zodi to serve directing hand starting here very soon. That excites me a lot. I have known John over 15 years. I've worked with him at the federal and state level, and I'm absolutely enthusiastic to see that I'll get a chance to work with him at the local level. He's a worker's worker, and public service is not an easy thing, but I'm glad he'll be in that job, and so we'll welcome him to local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. Mr. McKim?
Thank you. I'd also like to echo Mr. Deckard in congratulating Mr. Zodi for his new position. I think he's an excellent hire. And Councillor Hawk, I believe you were referring to my comments about the amendments to SB 207. And, you know, I did not support the amendments because I do think it's good for county staff to have skin in the game, and city staff to have skin in the game to adopt a local wheel and excise surtax. But no, I completely agree with you that that's something I'm certainly willing to give up to get that passed. So I 100% agree, and hopefully we're all contacting our representatives to make sure that that bill, and our senators to make sure that that bill goes through to the end. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKim. Anything further? All right. Well, seeing no further comments, we are adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody.